Dplyr video tutorial on Introduction to the Tidyverse. Okay, so in this video, we're going to start learning about using the Tidy framework for data processing and data. It's not really analysis, it's more like data handling. And that's really what we're interested in, is figuring out how to better handle our data. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Dplyr library. So here, if you don't have Dplyr installed, you can always come over to your packages and install it over here. Just type in Dplyr and bingo, it will install it for you. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to do it again. But once you have it installed, then you can simply just run this line, library, Dplyr, and it will give you this error here because it's going to move, or it's going to change some of the functions that are already in your base R, and you need to be aware of that. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the working directory. Now, this working directory is set to my desktop on this computer. I have a whole bunch of computers. This is the one on this computer. You need to set it to the one that's on your computer. The beauty about RStudio, though, is that you don't really have to know how to find it. You just have to know what drive you're on. So if I were to do this real quick, for those of you who have forgotten, you can just hit C and then hit tab, or this / and then hit tab, and it'll start popping up a help that will help you go through and figure these things out for yourself. Now, if I wanted to, I can just go right down here to get to the desktop, and bingo, it helps me find the path to the desktop without me actually having to know the path. Now, I do know the path, but that's why you want to keep this in your code so you can reproduce things. Now, what I've done is, in the repository below, I've downloaded the Crime.csv data. It's a small data set, want to read it in, and I just want to start playing with this idea of what Dplyr can do in the Tidyverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these lines here, and this is going to give me a top of the data set. Okay, so you might want to stop the video right now if you don't have the Crime.csv data set downloaded. Go download it, type in this code, and then read it in. Okay, assuming you've done that, what we want to do is compare how to work with things with Dplyr. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do it in base R, and then we'll see how to do it in this tidy environment with Dplyr. So first thing I want to do is just subset the data based on the population change. So population change is one of the variables. You can see it down here, population change. So I'm going to subset along there, and I'm just going to want the one. I'm going to subset this data just where the population change is positive. So what I would do is I'd have to crime1, and then I would have to use the bracket notation where crime1 $, and then population change is greater than 0, and then I have to put a comma telling it to keep all the other columns in here. And this can, if you were just to see this code and you didn't really understand R, it would be difficult to really understand what you're looking at. Now, if I were to run this, it goes through and prints out all 44 of the rows of data where this is positive. So the population change is positive. Now, if I want to do this in with this Dplyr, the Tidy network, or the Tidyverse type idea, what I would do is still subset the data, but the way you think about using the tidy environment is slightly different. Okay, so here I'm going to do population change. I'm going to put in crime1. So this is the data set I'm going to start with, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do percent greater than percent. Now this is like an operator in Dplyr now. So what this is going to do is it says crime1, take crime1, then do something with it. So what I'm going to use is the filter function. There's lots of functions in here, and we're slowly going to inch our way through it in each video. So we'll do one in each video, and then we'll start tying them together so that you don't forget them. But what I want to do is I want to filter the data set, pop, change greater than 0. Okay, so this is going to give me, hopefully, the same that I have above. And sure enough, I get essentially the same thing that I got above, where the population change is greater than 0. So I took crime 1, population change is greater than 0. Here I've got all the rows where the population change is greater than 0. And what this does is it says then. Think of it as then. Crime 1, take crime 1, then filter it to give me where population change is greater than 0. Notice I don't have to keep track of the comma here saying give me all the columns or anything like that. What I just need to do is make sure that I pay attention to this filtering idea, because what I can do is I can ultimately chain these together, and that's what you're going to want to do once we get a variety of these basic functions put together. We can actually chain them together and get some pretty powerful analysis, but you have to get used to this using this then idea. So this is the very first one. Then what I could do is add one more on here, which might be a little bit harder to do in the base R, but we'll try it real quick. So we'll try to summarize something from our data set. Summarize the, let's say, percent youth once we have the population change is greater than 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste what I already have here. And then I'm going to use this function again, or this then idea. If I can type it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is summarize. And here you would just create a new variable, give it a variable name, and I'm going to call this mean. And here I said I was going to do percent youth. Okay, and then I can just say this is equal to the mean of percent youth. Now notice I don't have to put the data set in again. It already knows that I'm using this crime 1 data set. And if I run this, I get a single number out. The mean of the percent youth for the population change is greater than 0. All right, so we can start chaining these ideas together. What we can do is see how would we do this in base R. Well, we'd have to come to crime, take what we had here, and paste it. And to do the same thing, we would have to do what? Mean in front of this, mean of this, and then we'd have to remember the column name. So we could either put in here the column number, or we could put $, and then population youth, and this is the bracket that will give me the same number here, hopefully. And it does give me exactly the same number, but notice how this is much easier to read than this. Okay, so basically you're saying take the data set, then filter it, then summarize it. Here you have to go, okay, I'm going to take the mean of something. I'm going to take the mean of crime 1, and then I'm going to filter it down, and then wait a minute, I'm going to grab a specific column off of it. So this is a lot more complicated to read than this one. And I don't need to have to pay attention to always putting this crime 1 in front of everything, because it knows that I'm dealing with crime 1. All right, so we're going to move on to the next video, and we'll be talking about how to do other things with this tidy environment. All right, see you there.